I tip of the hat to you in an offensive Irish accent from Drinking with Craig and Roger. I'm Craig.
I'm Roger.
And even though almost none of us have had any of the luck of the Irish over the last year or for the foreseeable future, and probably not very many Irish eyes have been smiling, but if they have been, that's all you could see were the eyes because the mouth was behind the mask. We still have some delightful Irish whiskeys.
And I'm reminded of last year, just after
yes.
everything was shut down and we couldn't go anywhere. We didn't know exactly what you could do or what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so Craig could only introduce the show, and he was followed by my wife, Ellen, who served as a substitute and did a magnificent job. But this year we have a much better idea about how things work, and I've been vaccinated.
Hey!
So we're in good shape. And to celebrate St. Pat's, we
Yes.
want to talk about Irish whiskeys. So we have two Irish whiskeys and an Irish style whiskey to talk about. Now, for those of you who are not really familiar, okay, Irish whiskey originally was the same as Scotch whiskey, except it was made in Ireland. They used a single pot still, and they used it twice usually. And they used a barley malt to make the mash for it. But in the early 19th century, the English government imposed a tax on barley malt. So the Irish, being thrifty, decided to use a higher percentage, actually a percentage of unmalted barley.
Right.
And you can taste this in their whiskey. It has a little grainy and just an overriding taste compared to Scotch, which is all malt whiskey.
Right.
Now, what happened was in the early 20th century, the tastes in the world seemed to like lighter whiskey, so the Irish whiskey, which was already pretty light, being triple distilled instead of just twice, began to be blended with a grain whiskey. So the typical Irish whiskey that you could find, for most of the 20th century was going to be a blended Irish whiskey. Bushmills and Jameson are just typical of it. Lately, there are more distilleries, and there are some malts that are coming back in that are Irish malts.
Starting to experiment with different things and
many different expressions. So anyway, so what we have now are three expressions. The first one is Paddy's.
I have never had it.
Well, Paddy is really not the name of a distillery. The story, which is all over this, is that Paddy was a salesman. And he went to the bars and sold, the whiskey in barrels, and he was very personable, and people liked the whiskey, so they would come into the bar and ask for Paddy's whiskey. And that's this. Now this sort of has that heritage, and here we are in a very nice container with the picture of Paddy right on the front of it.
Good looking chap.
And when you pull it out of there, oh, look at this.
Wow.
Its wrapping happens to be a little flyer with Paddy and the story of the whiskey on it.
Wow. Straight from the mind of another classic salesman.
Absolutely.
I was...
With period, ads all over it too,
That's
for
pretty
all
cool.
sorts of things.
I must say that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Now, here's what strikes me. You told me this bottle is under $20.
Yes, it was $19.95.
Okay, it's a $20 bottle, and it comes in one of these outer containers with the custom paper on the inside. Now that's probably too expensive. And a pretty sharp, looking label with a cork. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how is the juice going to be on the inside? And all the money went to the packaging and the marketing.
Well, it's only 80 proof.
Right.
And that gets you more bottles,
True.
for, the amount of whiskey that you get out of the barrel. people may not realize this. I think I said it before, but whiskey is taxed so very much that more than half of the price is taxed.
Yeah.
So, to make whiskey is not all that expensive.
Right.
But what you're paying for it supports our local governments, or actually it supports our federal governments. But anyway, it supports our governments and all the wonderful services that they give us.
True. And this is, the back of the bottle says it is aged for a minimum of 3 years. So it's a 3-year aged whiskey. So, not terribly well aged.
Well, the thing
But
is,
you can have something good in that amount of time, for sure.
not that long ago that whiskey was never aged at all. You see these pictures of guys making poteen in Ireland, and they're drinking it right off the still.
Right. I'm sure it's pretty good, actually. So here we go. We have pre-poured to save you the time of having to watch us pour.
Anyway, so this is the lower end of the scale blended
Woo!
Irish whiskey. Probably not very old.
Smell the grain.
I can
Yep.
indeed.
It's like a gin without the celery.
But it is not harsh.
That's pretty pleasant.
I've had
That
some.
is pretty pleasant.
Yeah, you
Wow,
don't need to add any water to this.
No.
And
Lord,
it's,
no.
it's pleasant and
Wow.
now.
Okay, it smelled like it was going to taste harsher. Because I've had a few low-end harsh Irish whiskeys. This is not bad. It has a pretty pleasant nose, actually. Once you get get out of the ethanol type of smells, has some light fruit.
And there's this overriding little taste, which is really smell and taste, which is kind of hard to describe. But that's the taste of the unmalted barley. That's the difference you have between that and
Unmalted
Scotch.
barley.
Yeah, it adds a little something different character to it. So if you're sensitive, you can easily tell an Irish whiskey from a Scottish.
Yeah, it doesn't have that much resemblance. Light pear type of fruit notes, maybe a little bit of like straw kind of notes to it. Very green, grassy, a little sweet, but it doesn't have the spices of the Scotch,
But nonetheless, it just tells you that in 3 years, whiskey can be mature
absolutely
and drinkable.
Yes, it can.
Easily, not rough.
Some of the young Scotches are great too, especially those Islas, like the big peat monsters can be crazy.
Oh yeah.
This cheap prop hat is giving me a headache. It's squeezing my head so hard. I'm going to tilt it back a little bit. Oh, pardon me. I know I look dumber, even dumber, but got to take a break. God, do I have a red line on my head?
No, but you're looking kind of green.
That's because I'm drinking kind of green whiskey.
Well, it's not green.
It's delicious.
It's great.
And if you're raging hard even on St. Patrick's Day, you can take a shot of this and you won't have that effect afterwards.
No,
This would be pretty clean.
Definitely,
Yeah.
I think a lot nicer than poteen would be.
Whatever that is, it sounds nicer than that.
Yeah, that's.
I just think of poutine.
That's Irish moonshine is basically what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to another one that I've actually been wanting to try and haven't, because I've heard kind of good things about it actually. This Jameson finished in a stout barrel.
That's right.
And so I was looking back here, 8D Brewing makes a stout. And because I was assuming perhaps Guinness, but as you said, Guinness probably doesn't age it in a barrel, which makes a lot of sense. So I guess 8D does, who is also Irish. And so they finished their standard Jameson in that. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the effect. And then I noticed there's a slight color difference between the two. No age statement at all on the Jameson. They say notes of rich coffee, smooth chocolate, and butterscotch, but we will be the judges of that.
But Jameson again is one of the two major big
Huge.
Irish.
Gotta be one of the biggest in the world.
Distillery
Really.
brands. That and Bushmill are pretty much the ones that survived all the little contraction that went on in the 70s and 80s. And they definitely triple distill everything, and it's a blend. There's going to be some grain whiskey done in a column still, of course. And then they age it in these stout barrels, so we should get a little heavier taste and color in this.
Yeah.
Really, really heavy malt. That's what you're going to get from the Scotch.
Yeah. Okay. It does have a heavier nose. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna have to try this. I'm gonna jump right in and not analyze the nose. I'm not getting too many distinct
It's a much
notes.
softer nose,
Soft,
so it's
yeah.
older. It's older than the Patty.
You think so?
Oh, I think so.
Okay. Pretty nice. Even softer, much softer.
Softer, rounder, a little heavier body.
Yeah, but the finish just goes poof. It's like a ghost. It just vanishes. It's like watching a ghost float away. The finish on this thing. You taste it, you're like, and you're like, wait, where did it go? Oh,
What you're looking at, what you're experiencing here, I think, is the taste of the stout, which is just a real thick, heavy, dark malt taste.
Okay.
But this doesn't cost significantly more than the standard Jameson. It was
No.
less than $30.
Okay, I'm starting to get some of those chocolatey type of butterscotchy notes on the finish. So
Finish is
that
getting
initial,
older.
yeah, it is starting. It's subtle. It's very subtle. It's not strongly flavored at all. But it has the standard, kind of more typical, light bright Irish whiskey start on the palate, and then it kind of fades into this very subtle, darker,
Maltier,
chocolatey,
roundier type finish. So yeah, it's
roundier.
rounder. Actually.
I like roundier.
Well, okay. Anyway, but yeah, it's much, it's a much smoother,
It is.
softer.
I'm gonna go back
Taste.
to the first one too, just to.
That's not saying it's better. It's just saying that it's different.
Depends what mood you're in. Now, okay, switching back to the patties, I definitely get a little bit more alcohol, ethanol in the finish, particularly.
Oh, yeah, it's
certainly
younger.
on the nose,
It's
and
younger.
definitely in the finish.
But it's not rough.
And what did you say the prices on this one? Is it about the same?
It's about $29.95 or something.
Okay,
like that.
so it's about $10 more.
Yeah, but that's about where these blended Irish whiskeys, mass produced,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, and I know we wanted to get a Tyrconnell in here. We're both big fans of that, and I haven't had one in a long time. But
Yeah, well, that's a
couldn't
single.
get a hold of
That's a
bottle.
single malt. and I couldn't
Yeah,
find
that's another level.
it. Depends.
But we did come up with a decent ringer for that jump up. Okay, this is pretty solid. I like this. You did previously get me a bottle of the Jameson IPA cask, which I
Yes.
enjoyed too.
Yes.
Definitely brighter flavor to that one.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. Just the thick, heavy malt is going to make it seem rounder and softer.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this one, but it's very light, very light. And for the third and final take on this style, we had to throw in a local, as we like to do. This is the Atlanta Distillery, ASW. Their more recently released second version of Druid Hill, kind of tongue-in-cheekingly named after the neighborhood Druid Hills. And but it's got Druid in there. So this is made in the U.S. with barley and malt. So I guess that means, the typical combination of malt and grain. And it's triple pot distilled. This is made here in Atlanta, distilled in Atlanta, but the grains come from a 6th generation family farm in County Louth, Ireland, at the foot of the Cooley Mountains. So this is the real deal grain here. This is a choice craft artisan grain.
I hope Jameson's isn't hurting for malted barley because of this.
Apparently not. They make very little of this.
Okay, so it's basically a single malt.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, single malt.
Nope,
Let's
nope,
call it a
yeah,
single malt.
yeah.
And they never chill filter or add any color. So distilled, matured, and bottled here in Atlanta. Now you will notice this is a significantly darker color than the others. There's no age statement on here, of course.
Yes.
I mean, massively different color between these two,
But
and it's significantly stronger.
But it's probably only like 3-4 years old, I bet.
If that, probably less than that, I would guess. But then again, our temperatures fluctuate far more probably than Ireland, and it's 49% alcohol So, you know,
98 proof.
yeah,
Okay.
we're taking a big old jump in strength here.
Well, mostly it's just going to be heavier in body, I think.
I hope.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. Beautiful nose. It really has that signature ASW smell to it. You remember when we did the Resurgence rye?
Yes.
I get some of those same pecan chocolatey notes on that. What about you?
Well, it's definitely got a much heavier body and smell than the two
Oh
Irish
my
whiskeys
God, it
we've- you know.
couldn't smell more different from the first two.
It's, yeah.
Much bigger and richer. Wow.
Well, but it's also, you know, at least 12 proof more.
Well, yes, but the proof is in the palate, so here we go.
Okay, here we go.
I'm gonna trademark that shred. Ooh. Oh boy, that's good.
Yeah, that is a significantly heavier bodied whiskey with you know, the legs that are up to the rim and oh, I taste cinnamon. Do you taste cinnamon?
There's definitely a little bit of cinnamon in there.
Yeah, that was not in the other.
Far more complex than the other two. Way, way, way. I mean, blows it out of the water. Good Lord,
Yeah,
that is
beside
good.
the sweet malt, you know, the cinnamon is what's coming to me as a
On
dominant.
the finish, for sure. It
Oh,
has a
yes.
ton of finish. And I did pick this up from the distillery. I got it at its first available offering, and it is signed by the head distiller, who does all the cuts himself by hand. He manually, as the spirits start coming out, you know, they have the, what do they call it?
So you have the heads,
The heads and the
which
tails.
are not good.
Yeah.
And we need to say this.
Sure.
When you use a pot still, okay, the beginning of it boiling, you know, produces stuff that is not really all that desirable, and then there's a very sweet spot where everything is really pretty nice, and then it begins to get not so nice, and the stuff there is cut off and used as what they call tails. And what they do is they take the heads and the tails and put them in the next batch generally.
Yeah.
And then they get a little bit more out of it that way. But it's a real art to know when to start saving the whiskey
Yeah.
to put in the barrel and when to stop.
There's very little to no youth in this at all. I mean, God, it's amazing. I mean, you could just tell it's on another level of, you know, artisanal quality. This is wow. This is I almost want to say this is a treasure. This is so good.
If I didn't know better, I would say I almost taste a little bit of rye whiskey in this. A little bit of rye.
Like I said, it's like their Resurgence rye. It has some of that flavor profile to it. They have this underlying flavor profile that comes across their bourbons, their Irish styles, their American single malts. They have their own distinct flavor that carries through, and I love it. And when you go back to these, boy, I mean, the Jameson, it smells straight up borderline harsh in comparison. So for me, I mean, God, you got to pull for this every time. Now, this is about twice as much as the patties, typically, when you find it. Might be, I can't remember if it's somewhere between 40, 50 bucks. So it might only be like 10 bucks more than the
Probably more like
Jameson.
15. I would go with that.
10 to 15 more, but oh my God, it's a world of difference. If this was available to me and I was going between these two, I'd definitely go with ASW. I mean, it's just, whew, it's just a world of difference.
It also kind of depends on what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
If you want a traditional
Absolutely.
Irish taste, well, Jameson's either this way or the normal Jameson's without any special barrel treating would be a good choice. The other one I would recommend, since we haven't tasted it, is Bushmills for the traditional one.
Yeah.
Then there are some other Irish whiskeys like Ticonderoga and I think Connemara. I think that's what it is. That are malts only. Not
Boy, they're
only.
good too. Ooh,
They're good.
They are so good.
Patties, surprisingly okay.
Surprisingly
So if you're
good.
not going to be critical about what you want, I think everybody would be really happy with the patties.
I would recommend it, honestly,
nice-
for a light, just very pleasant drink. And especially if you're out to do some shots or whatever, the patties won't treat you badly at all.
Anyway, so that's about where we are. I think we have recommended all three of these for various purposes and in various ways. They're very
think
different.
so. I think
but they're
so.
all nice whiskeys.
I
And
don't
they're
know
all-
if I would step up to the Jameson over the patties, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't know if it's that big of a difference.
No, but on the other hand, if you're just going to sample something straight with no water or anything else, all three of them work. It's been a great St. Pat's Day, but
Yeah.
I think we have a little leprechaun that needs to give us a send-off.
Oh, we do. And as I go to push the trigger on this 1973 Hoffman Distilling Company Leprechaun Decanter, I urge you to like and subscribe to our channel if you want to hang out with us and hear our thoughts on more interesting things. And sorry, this is going to be a little sad, but I think it's appropriate. So here we go. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, I don't think When Irish Eyes Are Smiling is a sad song.
It is when this plays it.
Well, it's not very fast, but that's okay.
Just enjoy the whiskey while we got it.
Okay, very good. Sriracha. Well, you should really get something out of that.